Back to Daily Flash. I am Mitch English along with Andrea Jackson and Riesa Pascal. No doubt about it. You already know this. Getting a good night's sleep, essential, right? But many experts believe it's actually vital for your long-term health and wellness. So joining us now is going to be your next best friend. She is a speech pathologist. Her name is Janine Stiene, and she's got some unique ways to improve your quality of sleep. Janine, welcome to the show. You look bright and awake, and obviously that means what you're doing is right. I'm so fascinated about this because a speech pathologist is going to tell me how I'm going to sleep better. How does this all fit into the sleep category?
I think most people think of speech pathologists or speech therapists and think of us as someone that's working on the way someone talks.
Yeah.
But actually, our scope of practice deals with all of the muscles in the oral cavity and making sure those muscles are strong enough. If those muscles collapse or it collapses the airway, and that's where sleep disordered breathing originates from.
That is so fascinating. You know, it's interesting, which shows our ignorance somewhat. But it's interesting to see, you know, maybe we need to be thinking about sleep in a different way, which you're presenting. And you say it has a lot to do with the tongue and the tongue's resting posture. Explain this because I'm fascinated.
Absolutely. So where your tongue rests in your mouth depends on how open your airway becomes.
Okay.
So if the tongue is in the proper resting position, it actually opens the airway, allows for those muscles to stay open so that you're getting the most amount of breath support. But it also helps to shape your hard palate, which is the top of your mouth,
okay.
Because the top of your mouth is the bottom of your nose. So the more the tongue is able to shape that hard palate to fit your tongue, the more space you have in your nasal cavity for breathing, and then more space you have in your airway for breathing.
All right, we have something called mouth breathers, you know, and some turn into mouth breathers at night. And I always know because I wake up in the morning and I'm doing this and that because I've been breathing out of my mouth. So I know the nights, and I usually wake up in the middle of the night. Is this really bad for me, or is it just a bad habit?
So it's obviously not the best for you. Okay. When you're breathing through your mouth, you're not allowing anything to filter the irritants, the pollutants, bacteria. So you're inhaling that directly into your airway. So we want to work to build the muscles of the oral cavity and, of course, the lips so that we can keep those lips closed and allow you to breathe through your nose so that those hairs in your nose or your cilia can help filter that bacteria. Especially those that sleep with an open mouth posture, oftentimes there's so much air that winds up in their stomach by the time they wake up in the morning that they're often not even hungry for breakfast because their belly is already filled with all this air.
Okay, that explains my son. Yes, because no, I'm serious. I can't get him to eat breakfast at all. I mean, he eats healthy otherwise, but in the morning he's not hungry. I'm glad you said that. Hostage tape, is it a good or bad thing? I mean, it's a product. Have you ever, I mean, is this something good? People are taping their mouths shut?
So we work with posture tape, but it's also important to make sure that the patient is able to breathe through their nasal cavity. You don't just want to put this posture tape on and say, okay, now work on this. You want to make sure an ENT has cleared the airway, that nothing's interfering with their ability to breathe through their nose. And then also working the muscles, because it's not just about the resting posture, and that becomes a habit to keep that mouth open. But we also want to make sure that the muscles are strong enough to keep those lips closed as well, especially while they're using that posture tape. The posture tape is really designed to allow for muscle memory, not to keep the lips closed.
I appreciate you giving me the actual term, because we laymen call them hostage tape, but posture tape sounds a lot better, especially when you're about to go to bed, right? There's something called myofunctional therapy that actually can help out with this. Explain that.
Yes. Myofunctional therapy is an approach to therapy that a speech language pathologist can work on, or they can specialize in. And the goal is to work on that resting posture of the tongue, to build the muscles in the oral cavity, to teach our patients how to swallow the proper way. Because if you need myofunctional therapy, most of the time it's because you are not resting your tongue where it needs to be. Okay. You're not swallowing the way you should be. And all the muscles and all the muscles in the oral cavity become compromised as a result. They all have compensatory strategies that start to kick in.
What about nasal tape? I'd like to go back to that because, I mean, a lot of people use that. Is this in the same neighborhood, or is this something totally different?
So with nasal tape, a lot of times you see that with individuals that are snorers or can't breathe clearly through their nose. Again, it's important before using any of those products to make sure there's not anything that's physically obstructing the nasal cavity or obstructing the airway that's causing that. I do know that people have had some success with nasal tape, but a lot of times there's a lot more going on than just let me put this on my nose and let's see if it makes a difference.
It makes sense what you're saying by all means. This is a trained thing that you have to really get used to, meaning when you go to bed, is just being conscious that your tongue is on your roof or in a certain place? And is that what you teach?
Yes, so we teach that, of course, on a conscious level first before we move it to a subconscious level, and we teach it in stages. And those stages actually emulate the stages of development that were almost missed as a result of this prolonged habit that has occurred. So we essentially turn back the hands of time and bring them through that process again at a much more rapid space so that we can make sure we get everything under control and build that strength the way we need to.
Janine, thank you so much. Not only helping people sleep better, but saving breath too, make it smell better too. The Spot Pal, that's where you want to go if you want more information on myofunctional therapy.